Dear children, we are going to study today Chapter 9, Heredity and Evolution, Part 2. And today's topic is speciation. First we see a video. We can see that how the lumpties evolved into two distinct species over many years after a free galactic event causes them to become geographically separated. With the help of this cartoon, we can understand the topic speciation. Speciation is the word which derived from species. Let's now the meaning of species and species concept. Species is a population of organisms whose members can interbreed under natural circumstances and reproduce fertile offspring. A group of beetles split into two populations by any physical barrier here that cannot reproduce with each other and may be called two independent species. Another biological concept is about medular birds. Even though they are look-alike and having overlapping ranges, the western medular Sternella magna and eastern medular Sternella neglecta have distinctly different songs. As a result, their distinct songs prevent interbreeding. We can understand that visual differences are more subtle, but they do exist at different species. Now we can define speciation. Speciation is the process by which new individuals develop from existing species is known as speciation, or speciation is the development of one or more species from an existing species. We can get an idea how a new kind of plants or animal species is created. The biologist orator F. Cook coined the term in 1906. It is clear that here is a pig. We can see that individuals belong to common group if isolated geographically give rise to new species. To understand the concept of speciation, the original population, if geographically separated or isolated, they are unable to interbreed themselves, hence new species are formed. In case of ancestor finch, due to natural selection, the beak is modified into different shapes for different purposes, either for insect eating or for seed eating, hence new species are formed. When two or more species are formed, these are called subspecies. Some causes of speciation we can see either geographically or reproductively. Now we see the definition of subspecies. It refers to one of two or more populations of a species living in different subdivisions of a species range and varying from one another. If we observe the varieties in turtle hair or in any other organisms, the changes are small even though they are significant. They simply change the common characteristics of a particular species only, is now known as microevolution. Now we see what is microevolution. Microevolution refers to the origin of new variants due to the reappearance of small but significant characteristics in the individuals that simply change the common characteristics of a particular species only. The change in the allele frequency that occur over time within a population is due to some processes like mutation, natural selection, gene flow, and genetic drift, etc. The evolution on a relatively small scale involving the emergence of new species or of new group below the species level is called as a races or subspecies. Gene flow. We should know about the gene flow. It is a gene migration, introduction of genetic material from one population of a species to another, thereby changing the composition of gene pool of a receiving population. Children, I think you remember in case of beetles, when one beetle is picked up by a crow, the migrant beetle will reproduce with the local population, and this will result in the genes of migrant beetle entering in the new population. This phenomenon is known as gene flow. And some other example in case of birds, they are partly but not completely separated. Suppose a large river comes into an existence between the populations, then the level of gene flow will decrease, and then two populations will completely isolated, hence subpopulations are formed. We should know about gene pool here. A gene pool is a combination or collection of all the genes in a population. This can be any population. Example, frogs in a pond, trees in a forest, or people in a town. A gene pool is not a real place. It's an abstract idea or an imaginary collection. Here you can see an oval structure. Some genetic materials are visible. This is a gene pool for the population of frogs. Now we can define subpopulation. A group of groups that is made up of same species is known as subpopulation. It will takes place because of the movement of individual from one population to another, or a specific portion or a part of larger population. Now we see the factors that lead to rise of a new species. They are genetic drift, natural selection, geographical isolation, reproductive isolation, or genetic variation. Now we will see one by one. The first is genetic drift. It is a random change or alteration in the gene frequency that usually occur in small population and result in genetic trait being lost from a population, or the random change in the frequency of allele in a population over successive generations due to sampling error in the gamete. It will result, we can see that new generation differ from its parental one. The process becomes very fast. It will also accumulate different variations in the population. Here you can see, due to the change in the allele frequency in beetles, they change their color and give rise to new population. And we can see here the beetles change their color and turn into red. Second one is natural selection. It is the process whereby organisms better adapted to their environment tend to survive, produce more offsprings, or the process which bring about the evolution of new species of animals and plants. Natural selection in a territory of one subpopulation over a course of many generations, green beetles have been selected against, and we can see here the brown beetles have flourished. Another example, in case of giraffe with the longest neck passed on their genes through natural selection. It was the perfect adaptation to the animal's natural habitat. The next one, third, is reproductive isolation. The inability of members of one population to breed with members of another population because of innate and genetic factors, or the inability of a species to breed successfully with related species due to geographical, behavioral, physiological, or genetic barriers or differences. It is due to the differences in breeding schedule. We can see here a picture. This is because two species of frogs inhabit in the same area but unable to reproduce at the same time. This will result speciation or formation of new species. The next one is geographical isolation. The separation of two populations of a same species or breeding groups by a physical barrier such as a mountain or a body of water, etc. Actually, it refers to a population of species, either animals, plants, or any other organism. They are separated from exchanging genetic material with other organisms of the same species. And typically, the geographical isolation is the result of an incident or coincident. It is because some physical barriers like river, sea, mountain, etc., which play a great role in speciation. The next one is genetic variation. The genetic variation is the difference in DNA sequence between individuals within a population. This is an advantageous trait due to the change in genes, hence passed on to next generation and evolve new species. This is the reason, that's why we can see the new generation of giraffe with elongated neck. Now the speciation, we can conclude it by several factors: mutation, gene flow, genetic drift and natural selection. Thank you for watching my video. Thank you once again.